Hey guys, welcome to the channel. It's me, Colin, Project Constitution, and today we have a great show for you. We have Z Cohen and JJ uh, Watson. That's your last name. Sorry, I almost forgot. I blanked out for a minute. So we have Z Cohen, JJ Watson, and Chris Santoya from the Unfuck America Tour movement with us today. They're going to be talking about their documentary, their bombshell documentary, that they just dropped on Turning Point, which is about them faking chapters. It's really good. If you guys haven't checked it out, we'll make sure to drop a link here in the chat for you. But we'll go ahead and get right into it. Let me introduce our guest here. How you guys doing today? Welcome to the show.
Good. Thanks for having us.
Doing great. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, so actually, let's go ahead and let's just show for a couple minutes of it, so people know kind of what we're talking about and what you guys did if they hadn't seen it yet. Give me a second to pull it up. Okay, I'm not going to show the full thing because I want you guys to go to their channel to go watch it. It's on the Unfuck America Tour YouTube channel. And again, I'll drop the link in the chat for you guys. But we're just going to watch. One of the things they did is they got into they investigated these Turning Point Club America chapters, and they found that a lot of their chapters are actually fake. They do not exist. Some of them have never even existed at all, and they're just complete lies. That's one of the things we're going to talk about. But they also went a step further to even prove this, and they created their own fake chapter with Turning Point. And it got approved, zero oversight whatsoever. So that's what we're going to show you now. We're going to show you that section. Then we'll have them kind of get into it.
A student organization can come and go. Records can be incomplete. And a national organization may define its presence differently than the school does. But taken together, the responses begin to raise a broader question. How consistently is that presence being defined? And how closely do those listings reflect what's actually happening on the ground? Because if a chapter can be defined loosely, then how much does it take to actually create one? Could a chapter exist without a real presence on campus? Without the school even knowing? Could it exist in name only? And if that's the case, can 3 people in their 30s start a chapter at a high school that doesn't exist?
Ridiculous quotas. Like you expect in 1 month for this one rep to start 40 chapters. So how are these reps supposed to do that? Well, they would give gift cards to the students if they started a chapter, but nothing would ever come of that chapter. So it'd just be one kid called the president and one kid called the vice president and then one kid called the secretary, and they got gift cards. You could have 50 chapters technically, but.
And by the way, the image they're showing here is the actual school that they created this fake chapter, which has been closed down since 2011, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
Correct. Yep.
3 3 of them hold events and like 10 people show up. And the others, they were given gift cards or they signed up and nothing ever happened.
He was pushing us towards other clubs.
A name, a contact, a record that may or may not reflect what's actually happening on the ground. And when those different realities are counted together, they produce a single number. Ultimately, the question isn't just how many chapters there are, it's what those chapters represent, and whether the numbers being reported reflect a reality in schools across America, or something else entirely.
All right, so that's a little sneak peek there. Like I said, you guys can, after the live stream, go ahead and go watch it for yourself. Just drop the link in the chat there. And just by the way, just so you know that we are not lying or bullshitting you guys here, this is actually Club America's website we are on right now. And if you go to their own website, right there, Wilkes County Training School, right on their website. So this is a chapter that they claim is theirs, a functioning chapter with students and organization behind it, and it doesn't exist. It's fake, made up, completely made up. They didn't do any verification whatsoever to see whether the people that set it up were, one, if they were students. They didn't check their age. They didn't check whether it was even a real school. Nothing. And I think that's real telling. But anyway, so yeah, so I guess how did you guys get started in this? What made you decide to investigate them?
Yeah, so I think like the very first thing that sort of like tipped it, well, obviously like we're all operatives on the den side. Well, a lot of us are. So we, like a lot of these publications that are writing about Turning Point, they don't know the amount of work that it takes for chapters, right? They don't understand what it takes to get these students active and to actually have a functioning chapter on a campus. And not just that, but also like how hard the approval process is through the school. Like you can't just, like most schools don't let you just walk onto campus and start a chapter. And so because we already knew all this, and also in combination with the publications that were putting out all different numbers, by the way, on Turning Point. If you look at the New York Times, Washington Post, none of them have the same number of how many chapters they actually have. And it's not like they're like close. It's like they're not close at all, right? So that was what like first tipped us off, was that we were like, it doesn't feel right. Like there's too many things. And then in combination with us actually showing up to campuses where sometimes we'd go to pretty large universities where we had chapters and we'd want to debate Turning Point, and there was very little to no presence on campus. So that's what really like got us starting to ask the questions that needed to be asked that led us through this process.
Okay. Yeah, very, very good. Yeah, it's definitely weird. You know, it's like they're making it up, the numbers just pulling it right out of their ass.
Yeah. The other thing that was weird too is that when JJ and I started like going through this, the first thing we did obviously was look at the Wayback Machine, right? Like to see when did because what was very unclear was that publications about Club America specifically were all over the place. So we didn't even know what year like Club America officially started, or when the name had changed, or what that process looked like. So what we had noticed was that I believe it was like August 11th on the Wayback Machine, there were no chapters at all from last year on the Club America website. And then all of a sudden within 2 days, it populated to like 1,300 chapters. And that to us too was like, I mean, if you're starting to build like a new thing like Club America, you would think that you wouldn't just have 1,300 chapters in a couple days, right? Like it would slowly increase over time on the website. So that was also really bizarre to us.
Absolutely, I agree. So how many of the schools or chapters did you and your team actually reach out to, you know, for the investigation?
I think JJ could answer that exactly.
Yeah, so in the end, it was a total of 71, although I think some responses from them are still starting to trickle in a little bit more. And actually, since we've started posting stuff, we've gotten some outreach from some people that have done their own little investigating, and they've kind of called some schools in their area and have found pretty consistently that like at least half of the schools have absolutely no idea what they're talking about with a Turning Point chapter. And again, these are all from that map that they claim to have chapters at every one of these schools with a pin on it.
That is a stunning discrepancy. That's certainly that's not a little mistake. That's something that seems like a major problem that they have to have known. That doesn't seem like something that they would not have known about.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they definitely know about it for sure. Yeah, because we've talked to staffers that all said that this is a pretty commonly known thing within the organization.
And I've actually heard the same thing. Go ahead.
Yeah, I also just wanted to add, like, even if they choose to not believe us, like, you guys could do your own due diligence. You guys could go on the website and you guys could call the schools yourself, and you will have pretty similar results to what we found out.
Yeah. Yeah. We made sure too, because originally we thought that, oh, well, maybe this is just like one bad employee, right? That's like not doing their job. But then we started to spread out our research amongst across the entire United States. So if Turning Point wants to come back and say, oh, that's the fault of a regional director, it's just not true, because we've done our research across the whole United States and we're finding the same results.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What now once you take us through the process of what you had to go through to set up a chapter.
Yeah, JJ.
Yeah,
can do
that part was comically simple. I mean, you literally, if anybody watching this wants to go and do it themselves, they're free to do that. All you have to do is go to Club America's website, click start a chapter. I mean, I didn't leave much out of what we showed in the doc. You really just have to fill a few things out. You do need to have, 3 positions that are filled, which is like a president, a treasurer, and a vice president. But in our case, those were just completely made up names and made up phone numbers. So yeah, I mean, very, very easy. And then from there, basically they just reached out. The field rep did for our region. She started a group chat, which was ongoing for about a day, a little bit awkward because I was the only one responding, obviously, to that group chat. But from there, I mean, it seemed at that point we were official by their books. It took a little bit to get the actual official update on the map. And, it took some careful prodding from me to be like, are we official at this point? But from their end, from the moment we submitted that, it seemed to me that we were official.
Okay. So they didn't, in that process, they never asked for your identities or license or, IDs. Well, obviously you don't have a license if you're a high school, but they didn't ask for your IDs or any kind of information just to verify that you were real people or who you say you were or any of that.
None whatsoever, and nothing to do with the legitimacy of the school. I mean, obviously, it's interesting in their document to fill out the one optional section is the school advisor. That's you don't have to fill that out. And I think that is an intentional omission, because I think probably what they experienced in the past is that there are, high school advisors that are not trying to get on board with Turning Point, and that they were having trouble getting to the numbers of chapters that they were striving for. And so they removed that as a requirement. So now there's literally no connection with the school whatsoever, no approval with the school at all.
Yeah, that's a big problem, because they have to have an advisor. Just if you start a chapter at National Ground Game, there's no way for you to get even one step into the process without us talking to you, because we have got to make sure that your advisor is aware of this, you're properly registered with the school, and then we meet with you once a week, on camera, to verify that you are who you are. So it's, yeah, I don't even know how they were able to even get that far in the process if they have any kind of legitimate chapters.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely a concern. Go ahead.
Oh, just to kind of loop back to what Z was saying, that, you know, they can't really blame this on anyone in sort of the middle of management, because this is really a top-down sort of structure where, you know, I think that they're aware of how loose their requirements are. They're aware of how ridiculous their quotas are for their field reps. And all of it serves to just inflate this number that you see constantly on CNN or, you know, local news stations. They're throwing, you know, 3,300, 3,500, 4,000 around all over the place. And that number is used to imply the scale of this organization. So I don't think they have any interest in verifying something that would reduce that number.
No, I agree. I think it was intentional, because that's one thing that's been very apparent, not only with, you know, people within the organization we've talked to, but even Candace Owens has mentioned on her show that, you know, at a certain point around like when Tyler Boyer and Andrew Colbert and stuff came on board, that they became less about the mission that Charlie had and became more about metrics driven and, you know, getting donations and about growth. And that's what they cared about more than what their actual mission was. And that seems very apparent. And that's, you know, this is, I think this is long-term effects of that. You know, they honestly, this reminds me of like the Wells Fargo, you know, back in 2017, when the Wells Fargo, when the banks got caught back in 2017, where they were making all those fake accounts, you know, taking customer information or whatever, making fake accounts. That way they could meet their quotas, because Bank of America corporate was giving them, you know, insanely, you know, the sales reps or whatever, they were giving them insane quotas that they had to reach for setting up new accounts, you know, per day, per month, or whatever it was. I don't know what their quota was, but they were giving them these unattainable goals, you know, to set up new accounts, putting so much pressure on the representatives, you know, that were, you know, the sales representatives, that the sales representatives had to, in order to meet these quotas, the only way possible to meet these quotas, and I'm not condoning it, it's definitely wrong, but they were faking it. They were taking people who were existing customers, and they were taking their information and signing up new accounts with them, like new savings accounts or whatever, without their permission, without their knowledge, you know, just to meet that quota. And this kind of gives off the same vibes here.
Yeah.
I think that's a great analogy, actually, because in talking to some of the former Turning Point employees, this is very much a problem of the work culture there, that like these reps were afraid for their jobs and their livelihoods if they did not meet these specific, totally unattainable quotas. And that's like a crucial part of this story, is that the leadership top down must have understood this, the incentive structure that they were creating.
Absolutely. Yeah. And like I said, I've heard this from multiple people as well. You know, this was basically a known secret. This is something that was very well known within the organization, even including the executives. And they just chose to do nothing about it.
Yeah, because it's not really about organizing, which means that obviously, I mean, I don't know. I'm not here to speculate, but I think $80 million a year on chapters, and even the chapters that do exist, which again, I mean, it's probably less than 10% of them can't even get money for pizza. I don't know. You can come up with your own conclusions to that. $80 million is a lot of money to spend on a year. I'm sure you could afford a couple of pizzas for some chapters.
Yeah, and that's something that I've noticed as well with people that I've talked to at these chapters, that they're not getting the money. You know, the money that Turning Point has been taking in, it's supposed to be going to these kids and to these chapters, is not actually getting to any of them. They're not giving these kids, these chapters, any money, you know, to fund these organizations. It seems like, and I don't have proof of this, so this is just my opinion, but I believe that they're taking all those donations and just funneling them into like Turning Point PAC, Turning Point Action, and pushing them out to candidates instead of what the money should be going for and what the donors think it's going for, which is for the students, for the activism.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's all very suspicious. And I did remember that we spoke with somebody, JJ, you could probably confirm this, that was telling us that when Charlie was alive, they were getting money for things, right? Like for speakers' fees, for things like that. And then after he died, they weren't getting that anymore. So I do think that when Charlie was alive, this was a more honest system from what we've heard, right? So it's unclear whether Charlie knew about this or didn't know. I mean, obviously, we're never going to know, right? Like we could only speculate, but yeah, but it was interesting to us that there was at least some money there when Charlie was alive.
Yeah. And I think it might have been the same person, but we spoke to somebody who was talking about, it got to the point where she was seeing these donor checks being written and they were being made out to Turning Point USA, and she was handing them in and essentially seeing these checks just like vaporize. They were not going back to her or her chapters. She was a field rep. And so it got to the point where she started telling people that were going to donate to actually specify the region on the check itself, because then Turning Point couldn't cash that at a corporate level. So it was such a problem that their own staff was finding a loophole.
Yeah, that's definitely sad. And I'll reach out to you privately and see if we can get names of some of these people you talk to. If any of them, I know some of them are scared scared to death. But if any of them will go on the record, then I'll see if we can talk to them. So give us out of all the schools you've contacted, what's the most egregious example of a fake chapter that you discovered?
Oh,
and I mean, give us the name, who you spoke to, if you can, and what they told you.
Some schools, I mean, they just didn't exist at all. Like there was no record of them ever having filed any type of paperwork. They'd never witnessed any students on campus ever gather for any type of meeting. Like it was just clearly completely a faked chapter. And that was quite a few. That was a lot of them. The first one that actually got us moving on this documentary was actually in rural Nevada. Cause I live in rural Nevada. Home of Andrew Colvett, as he likes to tell everybody. And so the chapter was actually in I think it was near Winnemucca, if I'm mistaken. I think it was somewhere in that area, which for people that aren't aware of Nevada's geographic locations, we only have 2 major cities in Nevada. So it's Las Vegas and Reno, and pretty much the rest of it is just desert with nobody there. And so this school in particular wouldn't have had more than 30 students at the whole school. And when we called, they were we don't have clubs at all. They were the clubs don't exist here. And so that was the very first one. And then obviously there were a lot more after that we called that were just completely no record of anything at all.
Yeah, and some that we talked to were aware of their presence on the map and had tried to reach out to Turning Point to get themselves removed because it was inaccurate, and were basically ghosted.
Oh wow. So even the school, this is a problem that even the schools knew about and tried to fix, and Turning Point, it seems didn't care. They just ghosted them, didn't even bother contacting them back.
In some cases, yeah, because a lot of people do. I mean, a lot of schools, public schools in particular, they don't want to be associated with overtly political movement like Turning Point. Well, and I mean, something else too that's interesting is that it seems to us that the whole genesis of the Club America name was actually to distance it from Turning Point, because they were having such an issue with starting chapters at high schools because the name was radioactive, So Club America was really, it seems to us, created to obfuscate the fact that they're connected to Turning Point at all. And one of the school club administrators we talked to, said she felt very tricked by that whole thing, because it wasn't until late in the process of some students trying to start a chapter that she realized it was actually associated with Turning Point.
Okay. How many of the schools that you contact out of the 71 or whatever how many flat out told you? Do you have a number of how many like flat out told you they have zero affiliation with Turning Point, and it still lists them as active?
31. So
Wow.
nearly half.
Yeah, nearly half. Yeah, that's where we really were like, okay, this can't just be like a miscommunication. I mean, if you have 2% of them that say that, that's one thing. When you have 50% that say that, that's something completely different.
I agree. Absolutely.
I mean, I can't even understand, as somebody that like works in chapters, I couldn't even understand 2% because of how strict our internal processes are with this stuff, right? I mean, obviously, like as an organization, we don't want to break like any rules at public schools because that could like tank our organization's reputation nationally, right? So we take that stuff very seriously. And we also, if the school does not want us to be there, then we are not going to be there because again, our reputation matters to us. And if they say, you know, we don't want to engage in political activity, then as long as that's the rule for everybody, right? Like as long as that's the rule for everybody, we want to respect what the school has to say and follow the administrator's rules. So yeah, to us, it's just, again, it's very hard to come up with an excuse for this, which is probably why we haven't heard from Turning Point yet, is my assumption. They're too busy, I guess, right now getting, 100 viewers on the Charlie Kirk show, which I'm sure Charlie would have loved that.
And see, they're talking about fraud. That's what they're talking about today. Yeah. It's
ironic,
beautiful.
really.
Yeah, it's ironic.
Yeah. I'm sure they don't want to talk about their own fraud, though.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And I know obviously that this is happening since it's trending on Twitter right now. So I honestly, I think it's disgusting what these guys have done to this organization. I mean, everybody knows, like, I very much disagree with Charlie Kirk ideologically, but I also don't think that it's like right for them to like completely destroy his organization and the reputation of his organization, especially after his death. Like, to me, that just feels so disgustingly wrong. And if somebody did that to my organization, I'd want them to do something about it.
Yeah, I agree. They've completely done a 180 flip from everything Charlie stood on. They're pro-Iran now, pro-Iran war. Charlie was anti-Iran war. They try to make him out to be like he was a huge, our greatest ally supporter, when he did a complete 180 flip and was in the middle of, leaving the cause. I mean, just everything they've done has been completely against what Charlie said. Even as far as the those donors that we're, I can't say the names. I don't want to get shadow banned, but that country's donors that were pressuring him, that he called it moral. They were trying to morally blackmail him, and he turned their money down. He said, doesn't want their money. Well, after his death, what do you know? Erica and Turning Point are now accepting the same money from the donors that Charlie turned down.
Yep. Yeah. Which, I mean, that in itself should tell you a lot.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And honestly, it really bothers me just how close that they have a very, very weird, close relationship with the Trump administration, in the White House. And that honestly, it's unethical in my opinion. I mean, because like even like when Wolves in Finance put his video out about the fraud at Turning Point, specifically like the financial fraud, in order to try to combat that, they reached out personally and had Scott Bessent send them a letter claiming Turning Point is perfectly fine. There's no investigation whatsoever. They're a great organization or something. I'm paraphrasing. It was something like that. And, to me, I'm like, whoa, that's wild. And the timing that it was done, too, you could tell because, the letter was dated, like there was no time for a letter to be sent and then mailed back. Like, it was done in person. Like, they just called him up and said, hey, I need a letter. And he just did it,
Yeah.
Very, very wild. Okay, so getting back into the quotas and the field reps. In your documentary, you mentioned something like 40 new chapters a month is what their quota was. Can you confirm that number? And how did you learn it? How were you able to find out what their quota is? Like, did you ask these reps when you talked to them, or like did other insiders tell you? Did they tell you? And also, did they tell you like what kind of pressure that they're under?
Yeah, and I would say that one of the things that we took into account when making this was that we didn't want to just take like one person's word as whatever was going on, right? Because we don't know. I mean, maybe they were like fired by Turning Point and had a bad relationship or whatever, and we want to tell the truth. That's the goal here. But what was interesting was that from all of these different people, first of all, none of them knew each other. We didn't talk to anybody that knew each other, and people came forward on their like completely on their own to tell us their stories. We did not look for these people. They were just coming forward telling us like, hey, we've heard you're doing research on this. We have stuff that we want to say. And the weird thing was that all of them were using, one, the same numbers, two, the same type of language, which was very concerning, which I think we'll talk about more in like part 2 and part 3, because if I'm being honest with like everybody, this is just scratching the surface. This is just scratching the surface. A lot of us, I mean, you know, it's like hard to sleep after like listening to like some of the stuff that we heard from Turning Point employees. Like it's really, for lack of a better word, it's just like really fucked up.
Yeah, you told me about some of it. You know, I'll you know, your part 2. I don't know if you want to give a little spoiler for your part 2, but one of the things that really hit me hard was what you told me about one of the Turning Point former employees you spoke with.
Yeah, and I hope that person comes forward and wants to say more like publicly. And the good thing about this is that, you know, keep in mind that like this has been a secret for a long time. And I'm sure that there's been a lot of Turning Point employees that have been threatened with lawsuits. And I mean, you know, obviously people like us, we don't care. We're like, you know, send your lawsuit if you want to send your lawsuit. But I think if you're just like a little old random person, right, that like doesn't have a lot of money, or even if you're, you know, just like, you know, relying on like getting another job, I think that's really scary, like for them to like have to face that. And I think it's like feels like it's not worth it. But now that this is out there, I think that they're going to start to feel more comfortable. I mean, we even heard from one of them this morning that they feel so much more comfortable now that this is out in the open, right? Because now it feels like they can speak more freely. Like if people come forward in numbers, they can't sue everybody. They can only do it if they find out it's, you know, one person behind it. Which again, to be very clear, like if Turning Point is watching this, this was not just one person. So there's no way that they're going to be able to blame any singular person in the making of this. We talked to a lot of different people, all of whom said the exact same thing.
Gotcha. And they revealed the pressure that they were under. Like, did they talk to you in any kind of detail, like the pressure that the executives are putting them under to meet these quotas?
Oh yeah. They were, and JJ could tell us more for sure, but like, yeah, they were all, and they all said, but just to give people an idea, like 40 chapters in a month is not possible. Like, it's not even possible.
No, unattainable.
No, it's totally, and it's not even just like, oh, well, maybe one person could do it. Nobody could do that. Not even a team, because the problem is that even when you're like applying for the permitting to be able to do this, that could take months. I mean, like sometimes, like depending on how strict the school is, I mean, some schools are easier than others, but even the easiest school that there is still takes like 6 to 8 weeks to get something approved, right? And that's if everything's in order. And some schools are even longer than that. Like there's some schools where it's like you can only file in this month every year. It needs to be done by this time. You have to have a faculty advisor by this time. Everything has to be signed. And that could take like a year to start a chapter. So 40 is not, it's just not possible.
Yeah. Well, and one of the reps that we spoke to, in her words, said that they lived and died by their annual reviews. And so when those came around, it was time to like assess whether they were going to be basically fired or be promoted within the Turning Point ecosystem. And that was a really brutal time for them. In fact, I'm actually, because, I still have that text thread, I'm getting messages now about our Turning Point chapter from that field rep because it's the end of the school year. And I think that they're just like going around checking everything, making sure everything's in order for their annual reviews. But like that is where people suffer the consequences of not meeting these quotas, it sounds like.
Gotcha. Do you know if they had any like if they offer these representatives any like bonuses or for hitting certain metrics or anything like any kind of financial reward? And also, well, I guess that's a separate question. But we'll ask you about the gift cards that they were giving out as well. But I guess I will do that separately.
Yeah. So one of the reps that we spoke to, he said that basically they were promised some exorbitant bonus if they were to reach some impossible metric, and the purpose of it, it felt to him, was so that when you didn't achieve it, it like broke you down, and then they would step in to be like, oh, we'll show you how to do it properly. And that was part of like how they basically made their employees feel like they were sort of worthless to like build them back up. I mean, it's a whole system of manipulation, according to this one rep that we talked to.
Gotcha. Yeah, I've definitely heard this, similar things about a lot of manipulation in there. They're kind of, cultivating a cult-like atmosphere.
Totally.
They're rewarded
okay,
to keep their job, right?
Right.
Yeah. and that's crazy. Yeah, and to have a company that doesn't stand up and support them, and I mean that's no way to live. That's no job,
Yeah, and
you
of
want
course,
you want financial responsibility, or not responsibility. You want stability. You want financial stability, and it sounds like they were giving them the exact opposite.
Yeah,
exactly, and it's hilarious because Erica Kirk doesn't even meet this quota, right? Like people are closing down their chapters because of Erica Kirk. And it seems like they have a higher standard for their employees than they do for their CEO.
Yeah,
big time. And that actually is a good point. Especially they cannot meet these quotas in this current atmosphere because there is such a dislike, a distaste for Turning Point, such a dislike, of Erica Kirk in particular. And as you said, many of these chapter people are actually leaving. They're dissolving the chapters and taking them with them. They don't want to be part of Turning Point anymore. Schools are refusing to allow them to hold events on the campuses. So in that kind of current atmosphere, I can imagine these reps' jobs were even harder, which is even more incentive for them to make these fake chapters.
Yeah, exactly.
Which then goes to the next point of the gift cards. You said that something about they were giving gift cards. Like if you signed up a new chapter, they offered them a gift card for signing up or something. You want to explain that?
Yeah, I mean, basically because the criteria for a chapter is so low, just a kid going online and putting their name into the chapter, application box. It sounds like they would have, for lack of a better word, bribery going on, where they'd just be like, yeah, here's a Chipotle gift card if you go and sign up for a chapter, and I think that, if I was in high school, I probably would have done that too. I wouldn't have given a shit about what I was representing. I just would have wanted the gift card,
Yeah, same. For sure.
Yeah, honestly, it reminds me of COVID. Like Eric or Candace made the great comparison that Erica Kirk is like the COVID vaccine 2.0. When they were trying to force that down our throats and bribe us all with the gift cards, and we'll give you free beer if you get the COVID shot. We'll give you $50 if you get the COVID shot. All these free things they were trying to bribe us with to get us to take the COVID shot, and that kind of sounds like the same thing that they're doing with these chapters to get people to sign up.
Yeah.
Okay, so do you know if Turning Point itself receives any kind of per chapter allocation, grant or increased donor money, or based? Do you know if they if their donor money is based on how many chapters they claim to have?
I'm sure that I'm sure that the donors are looking for certain numbers. I don't think that, I mean, we would be speculating, right? But I'm sure that the donors are giving money because of the student activity, right? Like, I mean, obviously, like, they want to put money into races, they want to do other things, but ultimately, Turning Point USA is meant to be a student activation organization. That's what it is. It's not Trump's organization. It's not Charlie Kirk built Turning Point USA to be a successful student organizing organization. And that's what donors are giving their money to. So I can't imagine that the donors are going to be happy with knowing that it's mostly all bullshit. I think that's going to be a really, really tough sell to the donors that are giving money to that.
Gotcha. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I think it's directly tied to it for sure. I think that that's definitely one of the metrics that they, if it's not in particular, like, I'll donate this if you sign up this many new chapters or whatever. I think they use it as like, like to gloat, like, hey, by the way, we signed up this. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. They have to have a strong pitch deck for their donors. And it's like, imagine sitting in front of a donor, you're a $300 million a year organization, and you're like, we have 200 chapters. That's pathetic. Like, most people are going to laugh at that and not give you more money. But it's different when you're like, we have 4,000 chapters, right? Like, then all of a sudden that conversation completely changes. So the same thing for their events. Like, that's the thing, is like, Turning Point USA isn't just inflating their numbers. And I think, like, most organizations in some way inflate their numbers. We try never to do that, but like, I know that there are organizations on both sides of the aisle, I'm sure, that inflate a little bit, but there's a big difference between inflating a little bit and 90% of it, right? Like, there's that's the biggest issue here. So they're not just inflating their numbers on the chapters, they're inflating their numbers on everything, on their attendance in events, all of the activities that they're doing. So really, Turning Point is just, really what I want people to take away from this is that Turning Point is not the size that you think it is.
Yeah, absolutely. We can definitely tell that just by their events now. I mean, you can see when they hold these events, they now have to put up the black curtains on the side and cram everybody into a small little area to make it look bigger. They even have and you may be able to speak to this since you've reached out to people, but I know they just recently started this TPUSA Hype Squad, where they have where they I don't know if they pay them money, physical money, but they definitely pay them in kind gifts, like giving them merch and tickets to the event, and like they want them to hold up signs and be their cheering squad at certain points, and that's the same people that they have asking the questions, like when they have the question and answer sessions. The very first people in line, they always make sure, are these Hype Squad members, to make sure that they don't get to ask any questions that they don't want to be asked.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was something that we encountered with a few reps, was, and in their words, for an organization centered around free speech, their internal policy around what they were allowed to say was incredibly restrictive. Just kind of going off what you said, it was interesting to us that they get weekly topics that they're not allowed to even mention, even on their personal socials. We heard occasions of people being reprimanded for bringing things up on their personal social media accounts that were that week's topic that you don't touch.
Yeah, I've heard that too. And one of the things, maybe you can speak to it when you sign up for these chapters. One of the things I was told in the agreement they have to sign is they basically have to give control of their social media to Turning Point.
Yes, like the schools. So basically, as part of their loose requirements, you have to start at least one social media account. Which in our case, I just started an Instagram. It needs to be TPUSA and then the school's initials. But it is part of the required process. Now, they didn't even ask for this, so I don't think people are paying attention to it, but you are supposed to hand over your login info for that. You cannot post anything that's not like an unapproved logo. So they're very, at least on paper, very restrictive over and controlling over these social media accounts.
Yeah, that's wild to me. That's something that I heard. I didn't have any proof of it, but that, you're saying that, then that's proof right there. So they actually, not only do they want to control what your social media posts, but they specifically request your login credentials so that they can directly control it themselves.
Correct. Yeah.
Wow.
That's in the handbook, I think, right, JJ? Or
It is. Yeah. That's in
the
the that's the publicly available handbook. It's like 40 pages long, and there's some weird shit hidden in there.
Yeah. They also have some very weird training videos if you want to venture down that rabbit hole.
They're on their website, or you have them yourself?
They are on the Club America website.
Okay. Yeah, we'll do another stream. We'll read the handbook, and we'll go over some of those training videos one day. Okay, so do you think the fraud, or not do you think, but do you have any proof that the fraud is just at the chapter level, or have you found evidence of it extending to, like the IRS tax documents or like donor materials where they're actually lying about the size of their organization?
Well, on the IRS filings, they're claiming it's what, 3,300, right, JJ?
Well, that's where it gets a little weird, because they're claiming 1,800 plus active chapters, but then also they're claiming active on 3,300 campuses, and they don't make a clear distinction between what those mean. But in any case, I mean, I think that like their chapter numbers are one of the things that probably the biggest thing Turning Point has going for it is its sense of scale. I mean, in all regards. So that number, whether it's in tax filings or donor pitch meetings or whatever, that number is central to justifying how much money is being taken in and how much money is being spent in our findings.
All right. Now, based on your research, out of the 1,800 or so chapters that they claim, what's a more realistic number of how many chapters that they have are actual, real chapters that are functioning? Like people actually, the school was actually involved and there's actually kids involved.
I mean, based on our sample size, which is not enormous, but we pretty consistently found across the board about half, are totally fake. In that number of the 72 schools that we contacted, a few of them just didn't want to talk to us. So it could go either way, but half of them for sure had no chapter, no affiliation. So I think it's safe to assume that number scales up.
Yeah, definitely. And then even the ones that are technically like registered with the school, what we found too is that most of them are just like inactive. So, like nobody posting on their Instagram. Some of them didn't have anything post on their Instagram since like 2016, as far back as that, right? So like inactive for a long time. Or they just like didn't meet, don't do activities, it's so, yeah, it's hard to say the exact number, but I mean, I would venture to say that I would be surprised if there were more than like 10 or 15% that were actually like real active chapters.
That's wild, and that really says something about, their organization, they're complete fraud, man. Honestly, they're just complete fraud. I really can't say it any other way.
Sad for the students involved too, because I think that some of the students probably did like want to have a real place for them to organize and didn't get that.
All right. Anything else you guys want to put out there or say is about the documentary that we haven't already addressed?
No, I think that's it on my end. More to come.
More to come, yes.
So about part 2 then. You got part 2 coming out. You want to give them a little teaser of what's coming in part 2?
So the problem is we have a lot of information to sift through now. So we have to like sit down and figure out how to present that information because it's a lot. It's a lot.
I would say if part 1 was about fraud, then part 2 is probably going to be more about the waste and the abuse. And if you have anybody listening that's a part of Turning Point, please contact us. Like, we'll keep your identity safe. And we want you guys to be a part of this story because there's like a lot of bad things that are happening in Turning Point. And it's very important for people to speak up right now.
Yeah, it is for sure. Like some things that are like criminal. So yeah please. Are your stories safe with us? Like we will never ever publish anything without your permission and without you seeing it first. And we'll always hide the identity of anybody that wants their identity hidden.
Likewise, you could definitely, same thing with me, I'll keep you anonymous if you want to stay anonymous. Anybody I've talked to knows that. I think you guys do great work. It's been fun to get to know you guys a little bit. And part of, there's a lot of, I don't really know how to address this. There's, back when Charlie died, a lot of people had concerns, and this has nothing to do with the documentary. This is just something that many people have asked me in my community to address. You probably know it was coming, but the interview, or not the interview, but the live stream with Destiny right afterwards, where I'll go ahead and we'll go ahead and shove real quick just to give people a reminder. I just want to ask you about that. And I've gotten to know you a little bit since then, so I know a little bit more of what's going on. And I personally don't think that you guys had anything to do with it. I think you were also being set up. But we'll just give people a little reminder of what this was.
Well, what's up? I'm streaming, by the way.
This is, did you see what happened?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, like, dude, Charlie's gonna be fucking dead.
I'm pretty sure he's already dead. Yeah.
Dude, we're fucked. We are so fucked.
Well, what's up? I'm streaming, by the way.
Yeah, I'm always open to talk about that day. For sure.
Yeah, so just kind of put us in, give us the mindset of like what you were thinking here. Obviously, you didn't mean like, we killed him, we're fucked, we're involved. I think I don't want to put words in your mouth, but to me, knowing what I know now, I think it meant more the organization, like you knew, because obviously, Hunter was involved with your organization, and that would be a very bad thing for you guys.
Well, actually,
even if he's not involved.
I wasn't actually even referring to the organization. So I was actually referring to America being fucked because, like, honestly, I think that America is, and I'm going to get pushback from my own side. If people don't know this, I'm a Democratic operative. I work on races in the Democratic Party, to give you context. And people in the Democratic Party did not like my response to Charlie Kirk's death because I was one of the few people that I think that the country is worse off without Charlie Kirk. And I know that's a very controversial thing to say, but I don't want to live in a country where people can get shot in broad daylight for their political beliefs. I think it's fucking disgusting. And it makes it more dangerous for everybody involved. I don't know if anybody knew this, but a couple of things. One is that Hunter was obviously he was planning that debate, right? But like he was obviously right in front of Charlie Kirk when he got shot. We were one of the first people to get that footage before it even broke on any type of, nobody knew that Charlie Kirk had been shot before we knew, because Hunter was obviously like shocked about what happened, right? So that was really like, we didn't even know what was going on. And then we were also actually scheduled to be at Colorado State University 5 days after that, next to Charlie Kirk in the tent, right? And on top of that, so that was going to happen on, I believe, like 5 days later on Wednesday. And then 2 days after that, so a week later, we were actually going to be debating Charlie Kirk on Jubilee. So we already had our tickets scheduled. Like this was going to happen. And that was going to be the first time, like that week after that was happening was going to be the first time we were going to actually meet Charlie Kirk in person. And that was something that we were excited to do, because obviously we'd had a lot of back and forth with Charlie Kirk. And I don't know if your audience knows this at all, but like, I really encourage you to look at the history between Charlie Kirk and I. Charlie never actually said really anything terrible about me ever. I mean, he did one video on me where he called me the Timu Charlie, which I still carry to this day.
That's hilarious, actually.
Yeah. So if anybody else says that they're the Timu Charlie, you are not the Timu Charlie. I'm the Timu Charlie. Okay. And he actually made a video about me. So actually, let me give your people context, because it's not going to make sense otherwise. So during the Student Action Summit, which was in July, right before this, I was on CNN for the first time, and they were covering our organization's counter event to Turning Point. And during that interview, Donnie from CNN had asked me, basically, what are you guys doing? Why are you here? Right. And I explained to them, I was like, listen, I think that Charlie Kirk is the best organizer of our generation. I don't want to disturb his events. That's not what I'm here to do. I'm here to just offer people a counter, an idea. And I think that the Democratic Party has been awful at putting the footwork in that it takes to run and win elections. And I think Charlie Kirk has done that. So we can't be mad at Turning Point or at Charlie until we actually put the footwork in and we do it ourselves. And some of the things that we're going to have to do in order to do that is we're going to have to have big tent theory, right? We're going to have to stop the cancellations. We're going to have to stop the bullshit. And we're going to have to actually work together to make this a reality. And then Charlie covered that 2 days later on his show, which you can look up. It's still on his YouTube. If you put in Zico and Sanchez, Timu Charlie, it'll come up. And he talks about how my theory was actually very smart, and how he thinks that I am one of the only Democrats that actually gets it and knows how to do this effectively. So Charlie and I never had a contentious relationship, really. I mean, I never hated Charlie Kirk. In fact, I looked up to Charlie Kirk. I wanted to be the Democratic Charlie Kirk. I just don't agree with any of Charlie Kirk's ideology, which is obviously why I'm doing what I do. But we live in the United States of America. We are supposed to have disagreements with ideology and not get shot for it. That should be a normal thing. So I don't know, to us, it's our organization and both of our organizations, we need to have a counter to be able to have stuff to talk about, right? Or to that we should be able to have that. And now we can't have that because some psychopath decided to kill Charlie. And now it's really hard for us to go on college campuses and feel safe. It's really hard for us to be able to do what we do. So I think that anybody that thinks that I had anything to do with it is honestly crazy. And also why would I join Destiny's stream? Why wouldn't I be running from the cops? I mean, that would be so random for me to be yeah, I killed Charlie Kirk on a live stream. That's kind of crazy.
Yeah, and also, you wouldn't have paid for and scheduled your events and trips for, the next coming shows if that were the case as well.
No, yeah, I mean, it makes me sad. I think about it. I think about that moment a lot, because I think about what it would have been like to get to meet Charlie, right? What would it have been like for our organizations to actually I think that the American Comeback Tour was going to be the biggest campus tour, because we were going to be involved, because Charlie was going to be involved. I think we could have had really good dialogue on college campuses. And now instead, we're fighting this organization that is completely being demolished from the inside. We're dealing with Trump, who is out of control. Like we're dealing with the Iran war. I mean, I think the country is just so much worse off without Charlie Kirk. And I don't think that, I mean, if anybody wants to clip me saying that, I don't give a shit. I mean, they can do that if they want to do that. But that's truly what I believe.
Yeah, and I agree. And Charlie, that's one of the things that he was, you know, one of the statements he ever made was there is no such thing as hate speech. You know, there is no such thing as, yeah, I mean, like free, like speech, you have to have dialogue. You know, you get violence without dialogue. Okay, so our free speech, our First Amendment is like foundational to everything this country's founded on. And I think Charlie knew that. You knew that. I think he supported you. I don't think, you know, you were a little bit of a pest, I'm sure, to him, like a gnat, you know, but as far as he supported your right to be there for sure. I know that. I know he would have supported you.
Well, and I think it helps him too, right? Like if you never have any pushback, that's boring. Like nobody wants to like do that. That's not fun. It's not exciting. Like we live in America, we should be able to have a battle of ideas. That's like what our country was founded on. So I think Charlie really believed in that, which is why he said that he was going to show up to Jubilee. And I really respected that he was going to show up to Jubilee because he was going to be surrounded by, I mean, mostly the Unfuck America tour, but like also like some really strong debaters on the left as well that, I mean, if he didn't want to have that conversation, he could have easily gotten out of it, but he chose that he wanted to do that. And yeah, I just think that it's, you know, it's a really, I just think that, you know, if Charlie was still here, obviously Trump would still be in office and there'd still be a lot of problems. But like, I think that we wouldn't be, I think that Charlie tamed a lot of what Trump was doing. I don't know if we would have gone into the Iran war if Charlie was here. I don't know if we'd be at the same place with what's happening with that country that you don't want to say on here so we don't get shadow banned. I think, yeah, I think because of those things, like, I think we're just in like a way worse off place. And as I said, I've gotten a lot of pushback from the left on this because a lot of people on the left have said that that's me idolizing Charlie Kirk. And again, I want to make it very clear that I do not stand by 99% of what Charlie stood by. I did not stand by. But I just, again, I think that like people should have that dialogue. And I think that without it, now we are a lot more scared, which sucks.
Exactly, especially because social media has basically become, with these algorithms, nothing but an echo chamber. You know, they don't show you differing ideals. They just keep you in your same echo chamber. The left is in their same echo chamber. That's all they hear is people saying the left. People on the right, same thing. All you hear is people spreading the right. They're you know, the only time at these events, in-person events, the only time that you actually get the real dialogue, you get to get that town hall experience where things come together and the meeting of the minds. And that's where great things happen. That's where compromise happens. And that's why it's so fundamental. And that's why it's so, what they did is just so terrible, because that's a major loss for our country. And it really upsets me. You know,
yeah. And what's happening
was,
now too, I mean, like, you know, I mean, so much has happened since Charlie died. And, you know, I think I just see things getting worse, unfortunately, which is why, like, I don't think we have the luxury anymore of you know, making this Democrat versus Republican anymore. Like, I think this really is like a it's top down theory right now. Like, it's everybody versus the top. And so that's why, like, you know, I mean, we have a lot of friends that are conservatives, a lot. I mean, there's a reason why Unfuck America is so popular amongst the kids that are leaving Turning Point. They're not going to the Democratic clubs. They're not going to the DSA. They're not going to the YDSA. They're coming to us because that's the way that we think, is that we want the truth. That's what we want. We're here to expose the truth. We're not here to do anything else. And I think that a lot of the Turning Point kids and a lot of our friends on the right, like, really respect that. And yeah, and that's why, I mean, those are the people we want to form a coalition with. We want to form a coalition with people on the right. And also, I didn't mention this before, but I know a lot of the Turning Point staff that have gone through some like really crazy stuff that we've heard. If you're listening to this and you're a former Turning Point staffer and you're still scared to come forward, I highly encourage you to go to leavingmaga.org, and they have free counseling services for people, I believe, on Tuesdays and Thursdays that you can sign up. That could be really helpful for some people, because if you've seen some stuff you didn't want to see, if you've gone through some stuff you didn't want to go through, I know counseling is like not for everybody, but I do think that like group therapy is really, really helpful, especially in those cases. And Rich Lodges, who started Leaving MAGA, was like very deep in that rabbit hole and came out, and runs a really good program for people like that. So I highly encourage you guys to go look at that.
Yeah, I agree. And you made a good point. It's not left versus right anymore. I mean, everybody in this country can see it. You know, it's us versus them. It's us versus the elites. You know, we're at a fundamental point in this country, a turning point, if you would. You know,
Yep.
a fundamental point in this country where, you know, we all have to band together and fight our common enemy. That's the only way that we're going to be able to survive. And unfortunately, we saw it with the Thomas Massey election, where they can just now buy congressmen. That's what they can do. They can just buy elections, fake elections, and I really don't know what to go there. You know, I obviously I don't want a revolution. I don't want violence, but I really do feel that is probably the only way that we're going to be able to fix this country. You know, is when enough of us say enough and finally stand up and take them on.
Yeah. And we also have to really encourage participation in primary elections. Like, I think Thomas Massey is like a good example. But a big problem in this country is that too many people are not voting. Like, this is a massive, massive problem that we're having. Only 50% of the country votes, even in the biggest election that we have. Some primary elections in this country, less than 5% of the population vote. So we really need to encourage people to get out there. I don't care if you're like, I'm in a small rural red town, and I don't care. I vote for Republicans in my town. I vote for Republicans that are honest, right? Like, and if you live in a town like that, you need to be voting too, because there are races in this country that have been decided by one singular vote. Like, and that is so important. Before we talk about any revolution, we first have to talk about getting people to participate, because that's a huge issue that we're facing. And Charlie said it himself too. I mean, Charlie was this was a big point of what Turning Point was meant to be about, you know? So I really highly encourage people to get out there and really like look at people that you're voting for, and vote for truth tellers on either side of the aisle.
I agree with what you just said. The only problem that I see is that the elections are now just rigged. You know, they're just fake. So that discourages so many people from voting. I mean, it shouldn't. You have to vote regardless. You have to vote regardless. But, you know, it's like, well, how do you fight that then? How do you combat that? You know, when they can just fake these elections using satellites, you know, like Ashley St. Clair, you know, said earlier this week. And how do you combat that? You know?
Well, there is a way that, I mean, I highly encourage people, put your money behind organizations that are exposing and also doing the deep research to stop this. So like, obviously we're a part of that, but then also like Democracy Defenders and Mark Elias's group is looking into like this AI and like trying to make sure that we do have free and fair elections. So I really highly encourage people, like, put your dollars and your efforts behind the organizations that are doing this, because not enough, like the DNC certainly doesn't give a shit. They're not doing it. Obviously the RNC is not. So like, go and look for the groups that are actually like fighting back against AI and fighting back against election rigging.
I agree. And I'm gonna be straight up honest with you guys. You know, I'm discouraged of politics altogether, but I'm going to vote for, you know, if a Democrat candidate comes out there and says that they are not going to take any money from you know who, if they're going to support a proper independent investigation into Charlie Kirk's death, then I'm going to vote for them. Yeah, I don't care whether it's AOC. I don't care who it is. You know, the first person that says they're going to do that, they got my vote. Simple as that.
Us too. Yeah.
Well, that's basically all we got. Let me see if we have any questions from people here. I'm not monetized, so I have I have super chats, but it's kind of weird. I have to donate through a link to do it. Let me just check, see if anybody did anything. Nope. Okay. Yeah, so we'll leave it there. Great interview, great documentary. Thank you for coming on. Real quick, you want to tell people how they can donate to your organization, because you guys definitely need support, and I would encourage you guys all to support them because they're doing great work. They really are. And it's not, like I said, it's not about left or right now. It's about us versus them, and that's the big thing that matters. And I've known Z for a while now. I didn't know her before Charlie Kirk, but I've gotten to know her since, and I consider her a friend. And they're good people, and they have a good heart, and they want to do the right thing for this country, and I support that, and I think you guys should too. And I also want to make real quick. I want to make one more point too about the Destiny Hunter Kozak thing or whatever. Another thing that you guys told me early on, and I was able to verify this, is that Hunter Kozak in your guys' Discord had actually said the question that he was going to ask at that event.
Yes.
So it's not like the people that think he might be involved or you guys might be involved. We all know that the CIA uses Discord to infiltrate these organizations, and also to radicalize people. So it's very it would be very easy for the CIA to have gone. You have somebody that's in there, have infiltrated them, to see that question and know he was going to ask that specific question, and try to set it up to frame their leftist patsy that the leftists did this, because obviously you saw people, like all the Charlie Kirk people, a leftist murdered my friend Charlie, Jack Posobiec and all them. And they even to this day, they're just trying like hell to blame it on leftists, and it's not leftists that did it. And I think that was the plan, and part of that was them trying to frame your organization and frame Hunter, as well as frame Tyler Robinson. So I just wanted to point that out. It's because like a lot of people wondered, well, how would they have known? Was he involved? I don't think he was, because he answered, like I said, the question was in the Discord. It was open. People knew it. They saw it. The CIA probably knew it, that country's intelligence probably saw it and knew it. So yeah, I just wanted to point that out. But anyway, so you got anything to say about that?
Yeah, I mean, we use our Discord for obviously all of our like debate prep. So that specific debate wasn't different from any other debate prep we'd usually do. I mean, when any of us go on Jubilee, when any of us are on any of these debate platforms like Dr. Daff, anything, I mean, we're always like, running it by each other to be like, oh, do you think that, like, oh, what could he say if I say this? Like, and, we bounce ideas off each other. Oh, he's probably going to say this, or, answer back with this. So it wasn't like, this is just something, I mean, we still do to this day, right? Like, we always have these conversations about like how to make our debate skills better. Yeah. So it's also, I don't think people know this too, but like, Hunter wasn't even planning, and I'm sure he'd be fine with me telling you this. Hunter was not even planning to go to that event. He actually had like a newborn baby a couple days before that, and like was obviously busy like doing other things. And I honestly I feel so sad for everything that happened to Hunter too. I have 2 kids under 2. I just had a baby 3 months ago, and like the stress of having like a newborn baby, and then on top of like I can't imagine. One, like witnessing that, right? Like being like the first person to witness that and how stressful that is. And then having like a baby, and then having all these I mean, it's like, and then all these conspiracies, like it's so sad to me. And I really like encourage people to like reach out to Hunter and give him support. Like, don't like, imagine what that would be like if you were in his shoes. Like, I really like would encourage people to like really think like that, because it's a really fucked up situation.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Okay, so how can they donate to you guys?
Definitely donate nationalgroundgame.com, or you can donate through the Unfuck America Tour, same link basically. And just want to thank you so much, Colin, for having us, and we consider you a friend too, of course. And just hope that we can work together, and you'll be the first to know when part 2 is out, obviously, and we'll give your audience a front row seat.
Awesome. Make sure you guys follow Z Cohen Sanchez on X, the Unfuck America Tour. You want to go ahead and let them know what your socials are, Jay, so they can follow you?
Yeah, so you can find me at just JJ Watson on most socials.
All right. What about you, Chris?
Yeah, you can find me at Santoyo Chris on Instagram, and on Twitter it's just the reverse, Chris Santoyo.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys all for joining us. Great show. Hopefully this goes viral, and we'll see if Turning Point responds. I really don't see how they can't. You know, this is a really big deal, and you know, they're not going to be able to just ignore this one. So, great job.
Thanks.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it. Have a good
See
one,
you guys on the next one.
All right, bye.